The Trump administration loves to talk about the deep state, but they're fairly openly dismantling any protections that could prevent a deep state from actually forming by gutting independent oversight and giving largely unchecked power to Donald Trump.
President Trump has set fundraising records. He raised $53 million in the first 24 hours after the verdict in that terrible, bogus trial in Manhattan. And I think that shows that people understand what's happening here. We also set fundraising records, and we've continued to. He's announced he's raised over $400 million since the verdict came down, and there's much more to come. And you know why? Because people see that that is a threat to our republic. They see that that's a threat to our system of justice, and they want to push back. And so in many ways, President Trump has become a symbol of that, pushing back against corruption, the deep state, the weaponization of the judicial system, and that's a very encouraging development.
The notion that the FBI as an institution was a hotbed of anti-Trump activity in 2015 and 2016 is pretty ludicrous. I don't think it's going to come as a shock to anybody that most FBI agents probably lean right. Despite what people think, we don't really talk about it at work. It is a pretty apolitical place. But most people who choose to go into law enforcement for a career are the sort of people who are rooting for Javert when they read Les Miserables. Like, it's a certain mindset. So there never was a deep state. But ironically, what Patel and Bongino are doing in terms of trying to root it out are actually creating it. They're getting rid of people who really value political independence, institutional integrity, ideological blindness. The only people that are going to be left by the time they're done 3.5 years by now are people at the executive levels who are willing to bend their principles for the party in power.
How cynical was this, Michael? Like all the stuff about Ray Epps being a Fed and January 6th being a government op that was a bunch of feds urging on Antifa to storm the Capitol and get it done, or that the deep state was protecting the Epstein list because of that. How much did they believe that? How cynical was that? And what is the process? Why is this Epstein thing suddenly now? Oh, yeah, no. I mean, if anything looks like deep state, it's the president's personal lawyer going to interview Ghislaine Maxwell.
Off the record without it being recorded. Yeah.
Right. And then a week later, her being transferred to a minimum security prison where sex offenders are not allowed to be transferred to.
Why did they do that? I mean, why put the FBI and its reputation at risk? What, it was just to win an election? Why?
Because they're weak. Because they're weak. I hate weak people. I can't stand it. They didn't have... we're on TV, so I already said BS once. But they didn't have the guts, the courage, or the character to do the right thing. They did the easy thing. Donald Trump became a convenient political football. They thought they could leverage. They thought they thought with the media on their side that they'd get away with it.
One of the things I think is interesting for people to understand is just how this works. It's not like the White House says, okay, go raid his home, or even the FBI says, go raid his home. This has to go through a process. There had to have been a judge that said there was a reason for them to go in.
Yeah, that's how this works. You've got to actually go through all of these due process and protective legal framework that is in place. And so a judge would have had to look at this. There has to be a warrant in place, and there would have to be some probable cause for moving forward and looking for whatever is outlined in that warrant, documents and other things that they may stumble upon while they're there. We have these protections for a reason, and you want people to have confidence in what our agencies are doing when they carry these things out, that they have been vetted. And something that's happening at this level, you would know would have to involve the top levels of the FBI and DOJ. Leaders would not be unaware. They would be very involved in this warrant process and getting things to where they are this morning.
Chris, will bring you in. If those federal agents do find anything incriminating inside of that house, how soon would any of that go public? Would we have to wait for some sort of a criminal filing, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, behind every search warrant, a federal search warrant, is an affidavit that spells out facts that really provide probable cause for two things. One, that evidence that a crime has been committed, and there's evidence in a specific location that you want to search. So that affidavit should be unsealed. It's sealed right now. When that affidavit is unsealed, then we'll see what the facts are that support this affidavit. But I will say, you know, I've consulted with several of my colleagues. We were the leadership team just before Comey. And we're looking at this a little bit skeptically because we were very heavily critical of the Mar-a-Lago raid. And just because you have the authority and the discretion to do something like this doesn't mean you should.
He has a lot to say, and he said it, and he's published it in book form. One of the things he said is that he has an enemies list. Secret police agencies throughout history have an enemy list. The American FBI does not and should not. I think there's serious questions about this man, his judgment, and his political values that he would bring to office. Yesterday, Ms. Bondi embraced him as a person's right for the job.
Yes.
Would you have hired someone into the Florida Attorney General's office who you knew had an enemies list?
Senator, to cut to the chase, you're clearly talking about Kash Patel. I don't believe he has an enemies list. He made a quote on TV, which I have not heard. I saw your sign, or Senator Durbin's sign, about Kash. But I know that Kash Patel has had 60 jury trials as a public defender, as a prosecutor. He has great experience in the Intel Department, Department of Defense. I have known Kash, and I believe that Kash is the right person at this time for this job. You'll have the ability to question Mr. Patel.
And I'm questioning you right now
do.
about whether you will enforce an enemies list that he announced publicly on television.
Oh, Senator, I'm sorry. There will never be an enemies list within the Department of Justice.
Despite him swearing up and down that it was a lie during his confirmation, Kash Patel's so-called enemies list is in his 2023 book, Government Gangsters. The list names over 60 current and former U.S. officials he claims are members of the executive branch deep state and a dangerous threat to democracy. So far, 5 of the 60 have faced investigations since Trump took office, the latest being former National Security Advisor and vocal Trump critic John Bolton. Obviously, Trump and his allies are never accused of being part of this deep state. And also, the Epstein files are being ignored by the very people claiming to fight against the powerful operating in the shadows and without accountability. Donald Trump stands out as one of the most corrupt presidents in modern history, but they just can't see it. He's surrounded himself with people willing to do absolutely anything to consolidate power, crush opposition, and ensure that the system serves them rather than the country. They're protecting the powerful and silencing dissent, which sounds pretty deep state to me. If you enjoyed that, then make sure that you never miss another video by subscribing. And if you want a little more, consider hitting the join button and becoming a member. So you're probably wondering, why would I do that? Well, when you do that, you get access to bonus content that I make every single week, and it's a lot of fun. You get custom emojis and more. If you join at tier 3, by the way, you even get access to a monthly member hangout with myself. And you'll get all that going forward, but you'll also unlock years of the back catalog that is literally 100 or more bonus clips and top 10 lists and debates and more. So what are you waiting for?